Hey everyone, Margarita here. I want to talk in this video today about the new Netflix documentary called Unknown Number. And it's been brought to my attention that this documentary has come out and what it's about. So I looked a little bit into it. I have not watched the whole thing, but just based on what I know, what I can see from it, what's all come out of it, what's happened, what I have been through is that documentary is less than 1% of what I've been through regarding my mother and her decades of ongoing harassment and crimes against me. And all this is still ongoing today, with the fallout still ongoing for a very long time. And it's such an extravagant amount of fallout, it's still going to be going on for years. And I'm left permanently injured from these crimes and this harassment for the rest of my life. I'm never even going to get to have quality of life in the manner in which someone should. So, just looking at how hyped up this documentary is and what people are all saying about it, and they're saying stuff like, "Oh, how could her mother do that?" or "Why would her mother do that?" and really, the situation is extremely mild compared to what I have dealt with, because that little girl who was being harassed by her mother regarding cyber stalking, because she was sending the texts through phones to her and her boyfriend, it only went on for less than a year and a half. Whereas my situation started from the time I was a small child in elementary school, and it's never stopped. It's gone. It's still going on today at 41 years old. And on top of that, she wasn't just doing it directly. She was using every person around me to help harass me. She made delusional phone calls from behind the scenes to all of my teachers the entire time I spent in school, and got them to harass me all in the delusion she was telling them, a whole false narrative about who I am as a person. And they were operating on it. Many of them were operating on this. There were some that did not. Some of them even confronted me as if I had done something wrong because she told them I did, and they'd pull me aside and they'd talk to me. And I just kept saying she's lying. Most of them did not believe me because they didn't want to believe this deranged lunatic was lying. Somebody's mother is lying. But there was a couple of them that, based on my reaction to what they said to me, they knew I wasn't lying. And then they kept an eye on me all year and didn't see any of what she had said to them about me, because what she was saying about me wasn't real. But that went on all the way until she managed to get me expelled from high school. She managed to do this my junior year in high school. She attempted it 2 separate times, once my sophomore year, once my junior year. The second time she was able to carry this out. And technically, she should have been charged with very serious felonies, and so should have the psychologist or psychiatrist that she had hired. Them two should have been charged, along with one of the Brownstown police officers, who was the the Woodhaven high school police officer at that time, was a Brownstown cop. So all of them should have been charged with what they did to me, getting me permanently banned from going to school to finish high school. I ended up finishing through the mail and then going to Dorsey Business School after that. But I had already been at my job for over a year at that point, and I just started working full time. I had 2 jobs. I just started working more. And by then I was making over $1,000 a week. At a very young age, I was 17, kicked out of school. And because I bought my first home at 18 and knew how deranged this woman was, and the harassment was ongoing my entire life, and she was using other family members to treat me a certain way as well, because there was no cell phones back then, but she used other people to treat me in a certain way. And it was more covert because she's doing this all from behind the scenes. She's just like the mother in the movie, where no one would wanted to believe that this sweet, nice lady is doing all these crazy things behind the scenes, and she portrays herself to be somebody different to the rest of the world. In all actuality, she's an evil villain behind the scenes, causing all these problems, creating all this chaos and destruction along the way. That is exactly what's been going on. But because I bought my first home at 18 and I cut all ties and walked in the opposite direction, knowing I knew what I knew. I knew exactly what she'd been doing. I knew what the problem was. It's just that nobody wanted to believe me. And because she controlled all of the people around me's behavior, I had no support system. I had no one to turn to. I don't have siblings. I didn't have any living grandparents. And anyone closest to me at that time, she had full control over how they treated me and how they viewed me. So nobody was living in reality. So I went in the opposite direction on my own after stating, I asked about this trust fund, saying, isn't this supposed to be given to me? And she made up all these excuses about how I didn't finish school, or I'm not going to go to college, or the reason she did all that harassment in school is so that I would not go to college, because I guess part of these stipulations in this trust had something to potentially do with me going to college. It doesn't matter. One doesn't have to go to college to be successful. So I don't know exactly what the stipulations were, but I did bring it up at one point, and I said something about this trust fund, and I stated, because she said no, that I can't have it because I did this and I did that and I do this and this and this. Well, the reason all those situations were happening is she was farming them to happen by using my teachers all along the way to harass me and abuse me, so that way it would look like I'm this person that she wants me to be, so I wouldn't be able to have the trust fund. So when I said something about it, she said that I couldn't have it, and that I don't get to have it because of this, that, and the other thing. And I already knew how extreme her behavior was and how she was toward me, and that she was causing these problems, some of them. I knew about a lot of them. I didn't know about 100% of them, but I was able to piece more together down the line that she was behind all of this. And I just said, you know what? Fuck you. I don't need you. I don't need the money. I'm going to be successful on my own. And I walked in the opposite direction, never thought about it again. Never thought about it until I had severe brain damage, died and came back. The first time I died and came back in 2018. And the very first, well, I wouldn't say the very first, but the oldest memory I had at that time, shortly after, was me being left this trust fund, being at the funeral, being at after the funeral where this was all going on, speaking to the attorneys in the room. I remembered all of that. It was one of the very earliest, earliest memory I had at that time upon coming back from the near death experience. So more memories came back after that, and all the way to the current day, to where I have the full picture now. But I remember lots of what had all gone on. So when I confronted her about all this and I walked in the opposite direction, I knew that my life was in danger because of how she acted. I wasn't fully comprehending that the reason all this was going on was because the trust fund was left for me, and she had every intention of pocketing it for herself and never handing it over to me, which at the root was all of this, everything that had gone on. By this time, I'm 18 years old. This had been going on for well over 10 years, probably closer to 15 years. And I knew I was better off parting ways, even if I didn't have all the answers, and figuring out the world for myself, because I had already been at my job for a couple of years. I already made really good money. It was twice as much as she had ever made. So I knew going forward from there, I would only be building higher and higher and higher from that point forward. I just wasn't aware how extreme the harassment was from behind the scenes. The amount of agencies and people she had already gotten involved, and then tried, she did down the line, add more and more people and agencies to this. So once I split ways and I was in my own house, immediately, I wasn't even in my own house for a week. And here was CPS showing up at my house, which they did numerous times in my first home. I was there almost 5 years before buying my second home. I was forced out of that home into my second home because of the harassment, the ongoing harassment from CPS, which had happened numerous times, which my mother was also at the root of, feeding them a bunch of false information. That's the whole reason I was forced from my first home. Well, she couldn't have me being successful and proving that I am that successful and I can do everything on my own with no help. She couldn't have that happening, so she had to keep using that agency to continuously harass me over and over again, till it got to the point where that lady had threatened me and promised to be coming back for my kids, and that's when I left my home behind and bought another one. My bills were paid ahead 3 months at the time that all happened. So I should have never been forced into that next home. This has disrupted every aspect of my life all along the way. This is still going on today at 41 years old. Because that house, I should have never been forced away from it. I should have just been able to keep working and building, move to my next house when I'm ready, keep working and building, move to the next house when I'm ready, stay in each house about 5 years. And then you don't pay tax on the money you make off of each home, or if you turn it into a rental, you don't pay tax on the income you make from it. So I knew that all along. I had this planned all along at age 18. So I proceeded to move forward with my plans each step of the way, not fully understanding that she was in complete control of all of the harassment that was happening to me. Much like the girl in the movie, except for hers is a lot more mild than what I've dealt with. because it's not just messages coming through on my phone. These are actual people inserting themselves in my life, agencies causing problems, charging me with things, arresting me. I wasn't a part of the medical system until I became injured in 2018 is when, was about 2017, around the time I got the primary doctor. 2018, then that's where she started inserting herself in this situation and making sure I did not receive medical treatment, which that is part of the Munchausen by proxy. I will talk about that in the next video. I'll go further into depth how she likes to create physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering. So that is ongoing today. But I had no clue that here she was causing all the problems I was having. Each time I left the house, it was because of the harassment of the large agencies and people. She was causing this to happen to me. So much like the girl in the movie, that's what was going on, except for I'm an adult on my own with 2 young kids, and I'm being forced from every home that I own, and I have a really good job the entire time. And by the time I left the second home, I had already been self-employed. So really, I was more of a victim of the 2008-9 mortgage crisis is what happened with the second home. But again, I should have never been forced to buy the second home. I should have leisurely been ready to buy it when I was ready. But it's all stemming from the harassment of the first batch of harassment from all the CPS calls. It doesn't matter. I had enough money to rebuild again. I regroup all the time and then have to rebuild from nothing. So I went ahead and did that again after walking away from the second home. Had enough money to buy the next house with cash. Actively looking at properties for over a year, almost daily. Had a handful of serious homes that I was seriously interested in. Almost made the move a couple of times, not fully understanding the degree of harassment that she's actually behind it, and she's waiting to rip out the rug from under me again. So that was going on the whole time. I was just unaware. And then during that time, she was also calling the manager I had at Applebee's, extremely jealous of my lifestyle and what I've been building and making sure that they try to fire me. But because she's so in the dark about who I am as a person, doesn't know anything about me, doesn't know anything about my real life or my investments or what I've been building along the way, didn't realize I had been 100% self-employed at the same time that I was working for Applebee's the whole time. She had no clue that doing that was not going to change the amount of money I was making. All I was going to do was just work a little bit more being self-employed, and I was going to still generate the same amount of money. There was no like job loss or time lost. So she made the mistake of not knowing reality when she did that. But then kidnapped my kids in 2013, went on a whole escapade, and had it going for so many months that I had no choice. In order to stop it, I had to work with my ex, and that's how we ended up with an extra kid. That's how I ended up with my 9-year-old, because that escapade went on for so long that she completely wiped me out using several different attorneys and Wayne County friend of the court, Monroe County friend of the court, and the Brownstown Police. And she used all of those agencies to wipe me out, create chaos, kidnap my kids, keep it all going and going and going and going for months where I'm chasing my tail in circles, and then had to rebuild from nothing at the end of that escapade. Once I was finally able to cut her out of the picture, then I started over from nothing all over again. Finally, I rented for about 2.5 years, ended up in my next house, which was this house after that. Doesn't matter. This house should have been bought years prior, or there should have been another one bought years prior to this one. But it was her actions that were causing all of this. So she's behind the scenes controlling the chaos and the destruction every step of the way. Here I've been building success from the time I was a teenager. At no time have I ever not known what I'm doing. Here I am building and building and building, and here she is ripping out the rug from under me, waiting for the next, if something happens accidentally, she inserts herself in it, and she calls to whoever's in charge at the top of whatever's going on from behind the scenes. Nobody ever sees her do this. She does this at home by herself. And then chaos strikes within my life. Agencies show up at whatever house I'm living at. Those couple places I rented during that time, CPS had showed up at 2 of those 3 places. I believe it was 3 separate times, 2 or 3 separate times they showed up. Separate reports during that time period as well. So all of this is going on behind the scenes, and she's able to keep it all going. And then since my injury in 2018, it doesn't matter. Now I've been wiped out so many times, rebuilt from nothing so many times. Each time I'm able to regroup and start rebuilding and rebuilding. But in 2018, I became permanently injured, past the point of no return. There's no me starting over and me rebuilding from scratch. I have to continue forward with what I was left with on the day I became permanently injured. There is no going back. there's no way to compensate me without all these people and agencies paying me for what they've caused me and returning the trust fund. So it's still being hidden from me because she just doesn't want me to have it because she's that jealous. And the reality is, I did make it on my own, and I made it on my own at a very young age, and she couldn't have that. So she kept having to rip out the rug from under me, and that's still going on. So when I bought this house, and this house is huge, she couldn't handle that either. She started lying to people that my ex paid all the bills here, that my dad's paid all the bills here, that this isn't my house, and I'm just this broke loser, and they all pay my bills because they got good jobs. Couldn't let anybody know this is my house. And some of the proof is in the pudding, and that's exactly why my dad was not moved here after his injury and why this house was not converted for him to come to, because it would have been a lot cheaper and a really quick fix for them to convert this house for him to come home to versus their house, because it's already set up for somebody in a wheelchair. It wouldn't have taken many modifications. And that left more time for her to cause more damage to his physical body. So I'll talk more about that. Well, some of it I already talked about in some of the videos, but I will talk about that in the Munchausen by proxy video, where she's poisoned his food so many times that it's left him in the state that he's in, where he's extremely injured, much worse than just what his injury had caused. She caused all that further. So she couldn't have any of this be real. Once the injury happened, yes, I still had my plans regrouped and set in place to rebuild, but the problem is I was left with no treatment, left to die, and that was her intention as a Beaumont Hospital employee, because then she would gain access to the rest of the trust fund. Then magically, somehow I managed to come up with all that money being self-employed all these years and managed to come up with all the money for treatment, almost 200 grand out of pocket, and she was not expecting that to be able to happen. And so she was very upset that I was able to put myself through that much treatment out of pocket, and my son. And she began causing more problems all during the extreme part of the injury. Had numerous agencies showing up at my house harassing me all over again, CPS some more, many different times, 911 calls. She's placing delusional phone calls to the city of Flat Rock Police Department in the background, and then her city, Brownstown, in the background, causing all these problems every step of the way. And then once my two older kids were approaching 18 and the 2021 Ford gas bill happened, she was then able to insert herself in that and call to the top of whoever was in charge of that and get all that going, get all this chaos going, and kidnapping my daughter and making sure she stays truant, and then making it look like I'm the problem, making it look like she's always had custody of her, she raised her. All that was all lies and delusions. She managed to blow my life entirely apart during the extreme portion of my injury from like 2018 to about 2022. She did a really good job of it. And it ended up forcing me out of my home because, again, she does not want the truth to come out about how successful I am, how self-made, self-built I am, that this really is my house, that I really did pay for everything myself on top of everything she's already caused. So she had to make sure that I'd be forced out of my home. So she got Ford and the city of Flat Rock to cut my hotel off, making them believe that I always had a mental disorder and a drug problem. None of that was real. I was still under daily treatment, had been for years, still fighting for my life, still living with my brain bleeding from the Ford gas bill. And if I did not make the type of money that I do, or that I did at that time frame, we wouldn't have survived if I hadn't bought the other house and gotten us to safety. She had to make sure she told everybody that I just couldn't afford my house because my dad was no longer paying for it, or my ex was no longer paying for it, and that's why I had to leave my house. That's why I had to put tenants in it. Those are all delusions. She caused all the problems that happened during that time period. She's the one who got us forced out of here when Ford should have been continuing to pay for our hotel in the extreme condition that my son and I were left in. Nobody should be left in an extreme state of suffocation, in and out of consciousness, and continuous brain bleeding, unable to travel from point A to point B after everything we had already been through, already losing 5 years of our life prior to that. And then she caused that to happen. So she wanted to make sure that I'm kicked out of my house again, make sure I lose my home. And so now this is numerous homes. So 2 that I've rented, 2 that I've owned, then this one, 3 that I've owned. So this is still ongoing. The fallout from all that is ongoing because then all the damage happened while I had the temporary tenants in it for 1 year. That should have never happened. They should have never been in here. Now I'm under Chapter 13 bankruptcy because of that tenant throwing away the checks, because she called the police department and to the city once the damage happened and let them know that I was going to be a problem with this tenant who, I don't know what she said to them, if she said there was no damage, or I don't know what she was telling them. But they refused to help me. They refused to take any reports on the stolen checks. They refused to do anything about taking a report on the criminal negligence. There was numerous problems here, but she's behind it because she was the one calling them all during that time period as well. So this has been ongoing my entire life, all from behind the scenes. What she didn't realize is that I caught on, back in 2013, I had a full picture view of what exactly she was doing. Pretty much every problem in my life was being created by her. Once my kids were approaching 18, around that time that I left from the gas leak and went to live in my house in Ohio, she then started paying people to insert themselves into my life at my work. Numerous people had done it. They all told on themselves. And she's basically created each problem along the way and has gotten it. She took it to the point where she basically set somebody up to date me to make it. But you could tell she told him a bunch of false information. I mean, you could tell right off the rip. And then I kept it going for some months because I knew that's what was going on. And here I was already for some years, piecing everything together, getting to the bottom of it. And nobody had realized that I really was 20 steps ahead, even though I stated this to numerous people. But the fact of the matter is, she sent people out of state to insert themselves into my life in a different state, so that way they could carry out their intent to commit fraud and gain access to the rest of my trust fund, is what they were going for, because she was no longer going to get access to it in the fraudulent manner in which she did by portraying herself to always have custody of my older two kids. Even though that was all fraudulent anyway, here she was attempting to gain access to what was left, and that's how she went about doing it. She needed me deceased, she needed me incarcerated, or she needed me deemed mentally incompetent on paper. And so she was using these other people to try to insert themselves into my life, to cause one of those things to happen to me. And all of those people are involved as well, with all of these police officers as well. All these city officials, all these people are involved in what has gone on with me. They're all involved in the criminal harassment, which is much greater than what that little teenage girl was experiencing in that documentary. That's literally less than 1% of what I've been dealing with. This has been nonstop my entire life. This did not just go on for a year and a half in high school. This went on the entire time I was in elementary, middle, and high school. Went on as soon as I bought my first home, and she had to make sure to prove to everybody that I'm just broke and I'm a loser and I'm so dumb and I never went to college and I never made it and I don't deserve to have the money because I'm just so dumb. And she had custody of my kids, and because we had no contact, no relationship, I was never able to stand up for myself or set the record straight with any of these people because I cut everybody off. None of these people had a relationship with me. None of them knew anything about me. They all backed up whatever she said. Those were all delusions coming out of her mouth. And then she would use my dad to pick up my kids to present them certain places and say, see, here they are, right here with us. Just like I said, they live with us. I have custody of them. None of that's real. She never used those words. She just presented them places to make it look like what she had been saying in the background was real. So all that had gone on, and she did all that so she could gain access to the rest of this trust fund. So because it had gotten to the point where this has just been ongoing the entire time, it's extremely extravagant because I've never gotten a break from any of it. It literally went straight in from high school into me owning my own home, to me having my own kids, me owning numerous homes, and me being in an extreme state of survival mode, chaos and destruction, criminal harassment, and it never stopping. And that's still going on today. And I'm 41 years old. That is still going on today. That's insane. So this little girl gets a Netflix series made out of her life, and it's actually something very minor and dumb compared to what's gone on with me. And these people are all walking around free as a bird currently right now. And I have enough proof to arrest at least 15 of them right now. Some of them might even be deceased at this point. I'm not even sure. But I do have a list of the majority of who's been involved. This has gone on the entire time, and my situation is way more extravagant, and it involves a stolen trust fund because that's the motive for everything they've been doing. And it's still not handed over to me, and I'm under Chapter 13 bankruptcy due to the harassment and the crimes. Long term, because I managed to hold on every step of the way. I should not be under Chapter 13 bankruptcy paying back the payments. The only reason that happened is because the police were taking her delusional phone calls and refused to do anything about the person who stole the checks and threw them away and did the damage. Doesn't matter. They should have never been in my house in the first place. She was attempting to get me unalived. That was the whole point behind getting our hotel cut off, because then again, she would have gotten access to the rest of the trust fund. That's what it was all about. And yes, we did nearly die several times. And I magically managed to get us out of here barely. The point is, the problems are still going on. Arrest needs to be made immediately, and this Netflix series was made for this little girl who had barely anything happen to her in comparison to what has happened to me, and this is still going on. And I'm in need of assistance and help right now from anyone who has the ability to help, but everybody wants to be on her team and try to paint me to look mentally disordered, or try to get me incarcerated or deceased so that way they can all get a piece of the pie. Nobody's interested in helping me. They're all still interested in helping her and commit more crimes and help carry it out, even though I have enough proof to arrest all of them right now. So I just think that's absolutely absurd that it's gotten to that degree. And yet there's the Netflix movie being made about something so minor compared to what I've dealt with. And what I just said in this video is the short version. So you would have to watch numerous of my videos to grasp what I've been through, what's been going on, the fact that it's never stopped. It's still ongoing right now. I'm banned from my dad all on these lies and delusions because she had to portray me to look the way she's been making me look for decades in order to carry out the rest of the crimes she's still committing, because she also stole my dad's assets as well, moved everything into trust for herself. She took the money that was from my trust and then she moved that into trust for herself. That law firm's involved as well. I have the names of the people. I have the names of the law firm. So, I mean, arrests need to be made. This is absolutely ridiculous that this is going on to this degree, but the rest of the world is going, oh, look at that poor little teenage girl just got harassed by her mom and she acted like that wasn't her and blah, 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 blah. Okay, my situation is 1,000 times that, and it's still going on. I've never had a break from it. Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? So yeah, I mean, I'm basically not going to be stopping making the videos, and I'm not going to be stopping outing each person and agency who's participated until arrests are made, until the trust fund is returned to me, because I've got a lot more to go. I will be back to talk about Tony Baloney. He's one of the people who was sent to date me and got paid. He got paid bribery money to try to make sure I would do something to get myself locked up or deceased. There was a couple close calls. It was 100% his doing. But what he didn't take into consideration, or he wasn't listening, I did say something, but apparently he wasn't listening, that the reason that Charmaine is involved and has been for all these years is because she was hired to document the ongoing crimes against me. He must have missed me saying that altogether when I said it, and I said it in numerous sentences, clear as day, what was going on with that. So, once that came out to that degree, he told on himself with his behavior. I will get to that video here very soon. I'm going to talk about the Munchausen by proxy end of all of this as well, and talk about the physical, mental, and emotional pain and suffering, because that also plays a role. And then I will talk about the Tony Baloney situation, because that just needs to be exposed, because he's one of the major players in the game with all the crimes that have happened against me. So, I mean, it's numerous people. So what papers I do have in my possession, I will expose all those individuals next, kind of in order, I guess you could say, in order of importance. And then I will hop on to the next subject and order the next batch of reports so I can go off of that. So I will be back with more. Thanks. Bye.